All I think about these days, all I think about these days is getting at that goal that's in my heart. I need a reason to believe, yeah, maybe a cure for my disease.
Well, hi there, it's Mathew, host of Learn from People Who Lived It, and as a reminder, we do things a little different around here. There won't be any commercials interrupting our conversation today. Instead, just give me an opportunity to talk to you about a couple of the folks who have been supporting us since day one, including ASI, an audio-visual integrator with offices in Minnesota and in Arizona. If you're the IT director or you're on the IT staff and you need to build out a collaboration system, sound masking, surveillance cameras, meeting spaces, they can handle that and so much more. This woman-owned company is online at asi-av.com. And then let me introduce you to Beth and Tim and the crew at tmgphoenix.com. tmgphoenix.com is where I go if you want to sell your home quickly and for top dollar. Multiple offers in most cases. And if sellers need to do leasebacks while they find a house, they've got options for this. And they offer white glove service that is unmatched. Connect to tmgphoenix.com by going to tmgphoenix.com.
Welcome to another episode of Learn from People Who Lived It.
Okay, so I hit you with a text yesterday. Tomorrow's session, we both come clean. We both talk about something we wish we'd done differently with our kids on the way up. Basically, we own one of their set points and then discuss. Ready to get scary? And you said, okay, let's go. That's what I like about you, man. You're one of these guys who you like the weeds. You like getting down here, don't you?
I think there's a lot of power in storytelling, and there's a lot of power in being open and transparent with the struggles that we each face.
Well, that's just it. And I think the reason that I wanted to talk about this was because, we've got a couple of shows underneath us now, Troy, and I don't want anybody to think that you're sitting here spending your time with a couple of dudes who's, shit don't stink, right? Like, we both have our moments, and I've got a couple in mind that I'm going to share on today's podcast. And you say you have something that you're willing to share on today's podcast.
Sure. Absolutely.
Let's set an intention before we go. What's the intention of coming clean with all this stuff?
So much of what we do in this world is related to, we think about our reputation. And then we also think about our character and how they're two very different things. We live from our character, and sometimes we're working on building up our reputation and holding up an image. And when we attach ourselves to that story and we try to walk and continue to perpetuate that image, when that comes apart or when that fails, we experience a crumbling of sorts. And so I think what's really important for people is to build from a solid foundation of character and to be truthful to themselves and loyal to their hearts, and acting from that place of in right action, but really working on character. And so from my standpoint, I'm pretty transparent when it comes to my failings. And even though that they may be failings, that I may perceive them as failings, ultimately they're opportunities to learn and to share. And, spirituality for me is about humility. It's about being humble and knowing the places I've been that maybe I look less than stellar. However, there are life lessons in those moments, and there's wisdom in those moments and wisdom in those scars.
I don't mind serving up the first ball here. And I have to go back to 2006 for this moment. So my son is 6 months old, Troy. I don't even know if I've ever shared this story with you. I think I shared snippets of it, maybe in one of our sessions, but my son is 6 months old, and I'm a raging alcoholic at this stage of my life. I'm probably drinking at least a bottle of wine a day, if not a bottle of wine a day, and then a few glasses of scotch. So I've got a 6-month-old at home who is got acid reflux, we come to find out, which means, he's crying all the time, and he can't sleep through the night because as soon as he lays down, obviously it hurts. And we were tired. We were, we were exhausted. I was drinking. And we got to a stage with Gordon one night where I had to go to a work function and my wife was fried. Mm-hmm. And we almost had this talk of don't go to the party. And I was like, it's a work party. I got to go.
Yeah.
One of the many things that I've done wrong in my life is put work over my family. More on that, another show. But I left for the party. And because of all the shit that I was feeling inside, it's the only way I can say it truthfully, I started to drink a lot that night. And I got so wasted that I left the party on foot because I knew I couldn't drive, which meant I had about I don't know what it was, 3.5 mile walk home. Mm-hmm. And I was in a suit, keep in mind. It was December, keep in mind, in Colorado. So it was snowing outside and here's this drunk dude walking 3.5 miles home in the snowstorm. And every bone in my body wanted to walk right to another liquor store to grab something for the way home. But it was closed. So I walked the 2 blocks home and I couldn't find my keys, and so I knock on the door and my wife's crying. And Gordy's in her arms. He's crying. I'm super drunk. I can't do anything. So that night ends horribly because I basically just go in my room and pass out. And she's up all night with Gordon. And I know in that moment for me, I created a set point for my wife. Subconsciously, I probably created a set point for Gordon. And the only solace in this story is that the next morning I woke up and wrote both Gordon and my wife, Nicolette, a letter and said, I'm sorry. I will never drink again. The end. And have never had a drop of alcohol since December 15th, 2006. Like that's not a super sexy parenting moment right there, is it? That's listen, most people hear that story and go crappy dad, no question about it. And I think about that moment still sometimes as a dad. And that was, Gordy's almost 16, Troy.
Yeah.
And that happened when he was 6 months old. And I still think about some of that stuff I must have done for the first 6 months of his life when I wasn't in my right mind. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. What sticks out to me is your will to make amends. How we do screw up and we don't live up to the way that we had hoped we would live, and we do screw up, but your willingness to draw the line yourself and to make a very powerful decision and to make amends with yourself and to resolve yourself to living a life of sobriety. How has it been since then? I know with alcohol, it's a tricky one. It's a hard one.
Yes and no. For me, it was, I think I've been at 2 crossroads in my life. So that was the number one. And then you got to witness crossroads number 2.
Yeah.
And so maybe you can back me up on this. In both moments, when I was decisive to take action, I took action.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
you're at that moment. Yeah.
I just never looked back. And it's still kind of the way it is. It's just this idea of we're just never going to look back. We're moving forward from now on.
Yeah. 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 That's great. And to be able to, I'm curious, Matt, when you do that, Mathew, do you beat yourself up about that moment, or are you proud of yourself? Do you appreciate the decision you made to move forward with your life in a positive way?
Honestly, yes, I probably still beat myself up a little bit about it. Or at least I don't look fondly and it doesn't produce a good feeling when I recollect on it. But no, the overwhelming feeling that I had then and still have about that moment is the same one that I had about the journey I just took 60 days ago. And I think that the most powerful thing a father can show his family is how to take action. And in both cases, I took decisive action with my family in mind. And so I like that example that I set for my kids.
Yeah.
Okay, I was a little screwed up and I might have done some things that weren't pretty awesome, but I think I've done a good job of showing my boys how to face your demons, how to face your stuff.
Yeah.
And make yourself a better version of you to be a better version around them.
I love that.
That's the work. That's what we're all trying to do. Okay, your turn. You got to come clean.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking about it when you asked me the question, and I'd start by telling you, when I was growing up, I was a very small child.
Okay.
I think when I was in high school, I think I graduated high school at like 5'4", 105 pounds. I was not a big guy, and sports in my family were a huge deal. My brother, who's younger, 13 months younger, is significantly larger than I was, and was recruited to play for a high school, and he was very talented and had his sights set in playing major college and professional ball. So he had a lot of promise. I, on the other hand, was a smaller kid, more sensitive kid, really wanted to play and make the team. But it was one of those things. I was not eye candy for head coaches. So I was overlooked a lot of the time. I had a huge heart. I definitely could have contributed as a bench player. Had a huge heart. So I recall, having that experience and not feeling, just not feeling good about myself growing up, being very unclear, uncertain, insecure, and wanting all of the greatness and the accolades, but certainly wasn't going to be in the cards for me. So if I fast forward to a time when I was in my early 30s, and my son, I have a son, and my son he's a fantastic baseball player, although he was similar to me in that he was not a very big kid, and I knew this, and I saw a lot of those things in him that were in me, that sensitivity, that heart, that drive, that love for his teammates and his game. And I recall one game, it was a bases loaded and he was up, and he was young. He was 12 at the time. He was young, and he came up, and there was a good pitcher on the mound. And like any dad, I was in the crowd just hoping that he would do his job and bring the runners around so that they could win the game. And remember, the weather in Minnesota was overcast. It was cloudy. It was raining. It was miserable conditions out there. And, when you're swinging an aluminum bat against a baseball, it can have, that vibration, and it can hurt and sting. Well, he hit the ball right to the first baseman for the third out of the game. And that moment struck a chord within me. I felt, I was hoping, and my hope had been lost. And after that game, rather than put my arm around him, I didn't, and I came down on him, and that was something that for me really hit with me after we'd gotten home and he'd felt horrible. That I went back into my room, I looked in the mirror, and I said to myself, that was not about you or about him. That was about how you are working with him, and not even working with him, but I was working on him. I was trying to build him up to a better place, and I was superior. He was inferior. I had never done what I was hoping he could do. And so I worked on him. And after really reflecting on that moment, I began to learn about what it means to work with my child rather than working on my child. I'm not pressuring them to become what they're not. I'm accepting them for who they are, and I'm going to work with him. So I did. I went into his room after that, and I I didn't know it at the time, but I had said the prayer Ho'oponopono, the I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you, that prayer. I'd said that prayer in a way when I didn't know what it actually was. And then we decided to do something similar to you, to make amends. And so I spent the next several years working with him, because he wanted to be a great baseball player. So I spent a lot of time working with him to do some things to help him. And one of the things that I did that I wanted to share, because I do believe that it's not only important to say, I'm sorry, please forgive me, but then also, like you, Mathew, to make amends. So I did a unique training with my son around programming his cells during moments in major events or major moments when he's going to be at the plate in big time situations. And I wanted to work with him. I wanted to, gauge his receptivity to this. And he was still of an age where he believed me, which is great. And I always had come from the heart with him, so he trusted me. And we did a thing where we did a lot of guided visualization. But more, we do a lot of guided visualization in athletics. And we see the ball landing in the green or going over the fence, or maybe the puck in the back of the net, or we see that a lot. But one of the things that I wanted to do with him was I wanted him to program his cells. And after I had him hold that bat and swing that bat with his eyes closed, seeing that ball landing where he wanted it to land and coming up big in big moments, I had him jump up and celebrate like he'd won $1 million. And I had him jump and wave his arms in the air and celebrate until he couldn't celebrate anymore. And we did it over and over and over and over again, continuing to program him so that, fortunately for him and for me, I was able to watch him through high school play and come up really big in big moments. And he comes back to me and he talks to me about how he'd already done it before 1,000 times. And so coming up and here when he was a senior, he was 5'8", 135 pounds.
Yeah, right. Still not a big baseball player.
Not eye candy for any major college. But I will say that in the biggest game of his career in high school, in one of the last innings, he came up with the bases loaded and hit a grand slam. And for a 135-pound kid to do that, he floated around the bases. It was amazing, but he'd done it 1,000 times before. And I really give him a lot of credit for that. And as a father who'd worked with him and taken that experience of the shame of working on him and coming down on him, deciding rather than coming down on him to lift him up and to give him some tools, and for me to get some tools to work with him as well.
Yeah, man, that's a great story. I mean, I just love how it ends. And what I love more than anything is your messaging on working, with your kids versus on your kids. And that's something that a lot of dads resonate with. I want to say, as a youth hockey coach, first and foremost, I'm so sorry that none of your coaches saw all your potential. Some of my favorite hockey players, Troy, are the littlest people on the ice because they have the biggest hearts.
Amen.
And I still, to this day, this is a statement of truth. I still, to this day, select Mr. Tanner Swanson for every single hockey team I play on. And he is consistently the smallest kid in the entire league, but he has a bigger heart than 90% of the kids that play in the league. And so I'm sorry that happened to you as a young man.
I love those kids with the huge hearts, but maybe not the tallest in stature, the most muscular, but they come to it with hearts and just for the love of the game. That's what I love about it. It's a game and we get to play it. And
we do get to play it. Let's what I would love to talk about for just a second is, okay, we've both come clean with a couple of things about our past that we're not particularly fond of. And hopefully what we've done is give you the power to do the exact same thing. The benefit to you is you don't have to put it on a podcast for everybody to hear. Maybe you could just write it down, or you could tell a friend, or even better, share with your partner what that moment is. Where it's easy to get stuck is feeling bad about that moment, right? And you kind of need to break free of the moment. You have anything you could speak to, Troy, that would help people solve that Rubik's Cube about removing the weight of it so you can move past it?
When we're gentle and compassionate with ourselves, it gives us the room to be able, the space in our minds to be able to go back, because ultimately the change and all change starts in the mind first. So to relax and to take a breath. And if we're holding our breath because we're angry, to pop the cork and to let it go, let that breath go, and to breathe in and to be open to a new understanding and a new way, that maybe our way isn't, to recognize that maybe our way isn't always the right way. And maybe that there isn't a right way or a wrong way, but there's a connected way where we can connect with our kids. So popping the cork in our breath, allowing for a space to come, and allowing for higher wisdom, higher knowledge to come in. And if there's someone that maybe we have respect for in the community that's parenting in a way, to ask about, who they work with and how they work with their child. Each child is so unique and special in their own way, but what we want is that connection. So I do think taking some time and just being quiet and asking if it's the right thing to do. And if you've got a partner that's willing to listen, I think that's also something to run ideas past them, or to take the messages from around ourselves, that if we're being hard on our kids, or too hard, excessively hard on our kids, and people notice that, to pay attention to them. It also helps to go back into our own childhood, to see how we were raised, to see what our experience was, and to see if there's any similarities in what's going on with our kids. And if we're not, in fact, living our life through our kids by working on them to become what we weren't or we aren't. It has a lot to do with being honest with ourselves as well. And when we do that, saying, smiling because it was a thought, and we can put those thoughts down that you had mentioned in a previous podcast, and we can put those thoughts down, and we can lay them down as if it's nothing, and we can let them go, and we can adopt a better strategy that can really help and improve the lives of the children that we're raising.
I think it's okay to talk to your kids about these moments, because oftentimes that can alleviate a lot of the stuff that sits in you. And for somebody like me, who's an okay communicator, like I'm pretty decent at articulating this won't be a modality for a lot of guys, because they simply, just don't embrace communication the way that other people do. But I found that honestly, just asking my kids about the moment, if they're old enough, was beneficial, and just talking to them about the moment. And in almost every case, they've kind of come back to and kind of been like, Dad, I almost forgot about that, Yeah, and so you'd be interested. I would be interested to see how much stuff you're carrying on that you don't even need to be carrying.
Yeah.
Like what we all like to think that the whole world hates us sometimes, when the truth is maybe everybody loves us. Right. And because of the thoughts that are in your head, that's why you're seeing what you're seeing. But so that's the only thing I wanted to add, which I think if you have a kid who's able to engage them, why not engage them? Bring them along the process. I think one of the things that dads need to do an excellent job of is teaching especially your sons, how to communicate and how to go through these things and problems with words and feelings and, all of the things that come with making a good decision. And these are the moments where these are real life on the job training moments. Yeah. And too many of us waste them, and we think, oh, they're the kids, they don't need to know that. Bring them in. Why not? Why do they not need to know this? Maybe they deserve to know why you're short with them all week. Maybe they deserve to know why you've been short with them for the last couple of days, and there can be a lot of really cool things that happen when you just bring a kid in and see what they think.
Yeah, I agree. And it's amazing when I did that prayer with, and again, I didn't know it was a prayer, but they're so forgiving. And when they look up to us and they're so forgiving and they're willing to forgive, and it validates them. It validates them in a way that maybe they haven't been validated before. And there's a lot of stuff that we do and we're so unconscious about it that's from our past that is generational trauma. It's passed from one generation to the next, and we don't even necessarily know that we're engaging in that type of behavior.
Yeah.
But if we take that moment and feel that disconnection, we can get into a place where we can remember who we are. The challenge with that is when we're continually told over and over and over again, and we're continually being worked on as children, we feel as though we're not good enough, and it impacts our self-worth. And when we are in that place where we're questioning our self-worth, we begin to think that we're not lovable or that we're not acceptable. And then when we think that, or we're doubtful of that, or uncertain about our lovability, we begin to make decisions from that place rather than making a decision from a place of self-worth. We wind up having kids that make decisions from a place where they're not certain if they are lovable. And when they do that, the world is more than happy to teach them all sorts of different kinds of things. And that's really not what we want for our kids. We want them to be making decisions and feeling good about who they are. And I think that's really important. So I agree, Mathew, having the conversation with the kids, it shows them that you're not only dad, but you're human and you're a guy. And
because how many of us grew up feeling like our moms and dads were not humans, right? Like we didn't even think about them like that. They were so adult. Even if they didn't know it or act it, we thought they had it all figured out. And we just assumed that was the law. Yeah. And it would have been so amazing. I think about it now as a mature 47-year-old man. It would have been so incredible for my dad to sit me down like I have sat down my kids on multiple occasions and just said, hey, your mom and I are kind of going through some stuff right now. And it doesn't have anything to do with you. But I just want you to know that if I seem a little short, we're just working on a couple of things. It's not a big deal, but I want you to know it's not you. And boy, that would have, like you said a few minutes ago, that would have popped the cork. That would have released some pressure as a child to be like, and not just me. I know that happens for a lot of kids in that situation. You can kind of think that it's you and you're making all this stuff happen. But that would have been neat to go down. It's probably the reason that I do it now, because I wish it would have happened to me.
Yeah. Well, and Mathew, think about the number of relationships that are out there right now with moms and dads that are not getting along in the home because they're busy running and they've got their careers and they've got their friends and they've got all these extracurriculars that they're doing and they're running around and they're not really connected with their spouse. So they're arguing with their spouse. Now you've got maybe two kids in the family, the oldest one being the one that's responsible. And that oldest one is doing the best that they can to try and be responsible and be that perfect child, thinking that it's about them when it's not. It's about the relationship that their mom and dad have. But they internalize that and they think about that and they try to be responsible and make things good all the time, working as hard as they can, and the pressure that's on those kids. And then you get the middle child or the youngest child that's the peacemaker. That peacemaker that when mom and dad are fighting, I'm failing. And my self-esteem is gauged by how well mom and dad are getting along. So having those types of conversations and being honest with them about our relationships also, is very valid. We're going through stuff. Not that we're working out our issues on our child or having our child be our therapist. That's not the issue. That's not the case. It's just
right.
being, hey, we're going through something right now. I want you to know this has nothing to do with you. Because so many kids even internalize that when we go into, divorces and separations, and how the kids internalize that and make meanings about themselves that they failed. And it's not about them.
Certainly. Yeah, I could, as soon as I uttered that statement, I could hear every psychologist and psychiatrist out there going, whoa, hang on. Certain kids at certain ages aren't meant for certain things. It was like, that's not what we're talking about here. Yeah. We're just talking about being inclusive as a tribe and saying, there's a thing happening. All right. Well, listen, is there any final thoughts that you want for this episode?
I think building the self-esteem with kids, recognizing them for who they are, accepting them for who they are, and not putting our stuff on them is really vital. That's how I would look at it, Matthew, and owning our stuff, being human, being real. Just being real with them is so important.
We have 3 goals with Learn from People Who Lived It. 1, to help you feel less alone. 2, encourage you to seek out a coach, a therapist, a church, anyone who can help you get through your journey and find some healing. 3, when you're ready, share your story with us.
She bit my heart, she didn't break it. Well, she took a big bite, said it tastes like bacon. Lips like Presley, moves like Elvis. You forget about your heart when she shakes her pelvis. Hey. Oh, we got nights to dream and wings to fly. Still young, but not tonight. I wouldn't have it any other way. Got gravy boats and mortgage payments. It's been so long since I've seen the rain. It's where I'll be when I die. It's where I'll be when I die. We got nights to dream and wings to fly. We're still young, but not tonight. I wouldn't have it any other way.
Thank you for listening to Learn from People Who Lived It. A reminder again that ASI, or Advanced Systems Integration, designs and installs cutting-edge audio and visual equipment. This woman-owned small business is big enough to find an AV solution for your next boardroom, classroom, council chambers, or courtroom. Bring in ASI and 2 decades of AV experience. Visit ASI-AV.com to see their gallery of work.